What's up, everybody? July 9th edition of the Fightful MMA podcast. We are coming to you right after UFC 213 and yesterday's Ultimate Fighter 25 Redemption finale. Joining me, as always, on these post-show podcasts is the one and only managing editor for Fightful. Is it senior managing editor now, or just managing editor, or the guy that just pisses off Jimmy Van, Sean Ross Sapp?
I wonder if I can get Jimmy Van to, change my title. Can I be senior editor, editor-in-chief? There's nobody above me on the site. Nobody's editing my stuff outside of, people are editing my stuff, but I'm above it. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Exhausted is what you could label me right now, and I still have tomorrow's WWE Great Balls of Fire to go.
Lots of stuff for you. Oh, that's your favorite name, isn't it? Favorite name for a show?
It's the shittiest pay-per-view name in the history of wrestling.
Well, speaking of that four-letter word with "ist" at the end of it, lots to talk about today, or on this podcast. Guys, don't forget, live chat is up top right of your screen. By all means, any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, anything you like, throw it up there. We will try to get to it throughout the show. We'll talk about right off the bat with Yoel Romero taking on Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker instantly. I was going to WhatsApp message you right away or text you my thoughts instantaneously, because I did see Yoel Romero land that side kick that people hate in mixed martial arts. They can't stand it when John Jones does it. It is a legal technique. And it is designed to hurt your opponent. It is designed to hurt your opponent's knee, and it is designed for someone that doesn't want to deal with someone striking to take away the mobility and the footwork of an opponent. So you got to give kudos to Yoel Romero for throwing that technique, because it sort of was supposed to immobilize Robert Whittaker. It did it, because Bobby Knuckles is a bad human being, and I think it's safe to say that you're probably going to label him as the best middleweight on this planet.
Oh, without a doubt. I already tweeted that. I'll probably write something about that as well. I think it is. And I can't say enough about Robert Whittaker. But let me ask you this, Joe. Before April 15th, how many people were out there saying Robert Whittaker can beat any 185-pounder in the world? Because I'm pretty sure there were two people, Robert Whittaker and your boy.
I'm going to say this. I'm actually looking for something's telling me my microphone is extremely hot. So give me 1 second here.
Yeah, just pull it out a little bit. No big deal. Just extend it out from your face a little bit. You'll be all right.
Is that worse or better?
There you go. Yeah, much better. There
all
you go. But
well, let me play off that point, because I want to say this. We started this company, or we started working for this company a year ago, and I'll never forget the first couple of weeks, if not the first month of the podcast, and the amount of championing that you were doing about Robert Whittaker. And every time he won over the past year, I'd make a point of saying the only person really that was just singing the praises of Robert Whittaker was you. Because not many people were doing it, but that bandwagon got bigger and bigger, and more people were jumping on up until tonight's fight. And now everyone, pretty much, other than Michael Bisping, is jumping on that Robert Whittaker bandwagon. You saw something in Bobby Knuckles that many people did not believe in.
Well, it's the thing that I saw in Gerald Harris a long time ago that I really liked, and it was more than anything the stance. In a wrestler-heavy middleweight division where you've got the one hand up, you got the one hand low in order to get the underhooks in. That alone can take you a long way in that division, but when you evolve to the level of Robert Whittaker, I mean, keep in mind, this is a guy who in June 2014 won his welterweight fight against Mike Rhodes in New Zealand, and was like, you know what? I just don't like the way that I feel at this weight division. Came back a few months later and decided to fight at middleweight against Clint Hester, who people thought was going to be something. People thought Clint Hester was going to be.
Oh, yeah. I remember him on The Ultimate Fighter. I thought he was going to be big time huge in the UFC.
Yeah. And what Robert Whittaker did to him sent him on a downward spiral. Clint Hester never recovered after that. Then he would face, it was the tests that were put in front of him, the Tavares fight. And Tavares is a little bit of a jack of all trades, as we've seen, and he starched him in 45 seconds. Uriah Hall, who could, on any given night, beat anybody if he pulls the trigger, he gets beat. Natal, that's a formidable opponent, ran through him. Derek Brunson made Derek Brunson look like an amateur fighter. Maybe Derek Brunson made himself look like an amateur fighter. But then when he stopped the takedowns of Jacare Souza and didn't have an issue, I was like, yeah, I think he can beat Yoel Romero. Now, the thing is, Joe, you look at this, and he's fighting on one leg against an Olympic medalist who has been known to do some shit in his day. His physique is suspect. He's down 2 rounds to none. Like, Romero's up 2 rounds to none. And traditionally, Romero has his most success in the 3rd round. He's got 6 third-round finishes.
That's where he gets his finishes, yep.
And these two guys, several years ago, were competing 35 pounds apart from one another. That's movie-level stuff, that type of comeback. On one leg, no selling it, not letting Romero know, throwing kicks, abandoning all shits to give. That I can't say enough about Robert Whittaker and what he accomplished, but it's not. I tout the stance and all that stuff that he has. It's the work that he puts in, and I can't remember these last 3 Robert Whittaker fights have just been unbelievable.
Yeah,
and his first two at middleweight were awesome too.
Yeah, well, okay, so the Derek Brunson one was, I kind of looked at that Derek Brunson one and I thought, yeah, Brunson, you screwed up. I mean, it's a 5-round fight. You went in there just balls out, and Whittaker was like, yeah, you know what, I'm technically better than you. I'm going to just pinpoint strike you and knock you out. That Jacare fight was the one that I was just like, oh my God, Whittaker is a bad, bad man. So heading into this fight, I believed more in Whittaker than I did going into the Romero fight. So I'm not overly surprised that he emerged victorious. I did give the edge to Romero because I still think Romero is a bad, bad, bad human being. Just a crazy, crazy fighter. But Whittaker is something else, man. Whittaker
is Whittaker the best 185-pounder in the world?
Yeah, I believe so. I know Bisping at the very end there. And
better than Carvalho?
Yeah. Just a tad, yeah. But
Carvalho.
I'm sitting there and thinking to myself, I get what Bisping's doing. I get what Bisping does, but that was, I mean, you're a pro wrestling guy. Was that tad lame?
What? Sorry.
What he did at the end
yeah, when Bisping came in, threw down the belt and said, fight me for it. Does that mean he vacated it? I hope so.
Dana grabbed that belt real quick.
Dana was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, that was Michael Bisping thinking he was doing something great, but he just looked like a try-hard. You know that he played that over and over and over in his head repeatedly. And Michael Bisping, I don't know. What can you say? He handpicked the one guy he defended this title against. He won it fair and square. He won that UFC middleweight championship. But in the 13 months that have followed, he has not been a middleweight champion, in my opinion.
So the whole thing with Bisping is when he's naturally witty. Okay, I've hung around with Mike with mutual friends on numerous occasions. He's a witty guy. When he tries too hard, it doesn't come across properly. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, when he's just Michael, it's actually funnier. It's more legit. Sometimes it has more emotion. Totally do not agree with him ripping up the Cuban flag. I mean, there are, I don't know how to say it. I mean, there are rules again, not rules, but you never take another country's flag and rip it up. That's a no-no. Who was the guy yesterday that ripped apart all Englishmen? Jakar Close. Close, just what are you doing? You can't do that kind of stuff. You can't get racial. You can't go after other countries. That's just stupid.
Hey, if you want to do it like our boy Matt Riddle did.
What did he do?
You remember when he talked about how he was in the UK and someone spit and it landed in his mouth? It was after 149. The greatest post-fight interview, or the greatest press conference interview, this side of Conor McGregor, was that guy. Yeah, it's also, I want to know, what was your reaction? What went through your head the first time that Robert Whittaker stood up from a Yoel Romero takedown? Because in my head, it's he's not going to be held down the rest of the fight. That's immediately what I thought. I was like, if Romero couldn't keep him down the first time, then knowing Romero, he's not going to be able to at any other point throughout this fight. Again,
I was way more impressed. Okay, going to that Jacare fight, I was impressed at what he did with Jacare. You're not going to submit me. You're not going to hold me down. So I went into this fight with Romero thinking that Whittaker's going to some way, somehow figure it out. And he did it very well. As the fight progressed, there was, I think it was in the second or third round, I actually tweeted it out. Everything that he was doing from the ground when he was on his back to when he finally disengaged. There are various techniques. There are various hand positions. There are various hip positions. There are various places to put your leg in, to put your weight. Every single one of those techniques, it's almost like it builds to the next one. You can't get to the third part of that exit if you don't get number 1 and number 2 correct, because everything you do in that situation, you know this, Sean, everything you do in that situation, your opponent can counter. And he did one thing and was ready for the 2 or 3 other counters. Once it was given to him, he did the other thing. And then he waited, and slowly but surely, he moved his way up through the maze and then disengaged. And I thought to myself, this is magical stuff. This is admirable. This is fantastic. You're doing this against a guy that won a silver medal at the Olympics and is considered an absolute beast by the vast. I mean, Yoel Romero is the guy that I feared that George St. Pierre would have to fight if he was to fight Michael Bisping and potentially beat Michael Bisping. And now I'm thinking, dude, you don't want to fight Robert Whittaker. Like, that dude's a bad dude. So
Whittaker is very impressive. Whittaker's going to kick the living shit out of Michael Bisping. Like extreme, like real bad. Yeah, I think it'll be real bad. By the way, guys, follow us at Fightful MMA on Twitter. Steve Muehlhausen will be tweeting the press conference, which have become insufferable to sit through at this point because you got to wait for each individual guy, then 5 to 10 minutes in between. So just follow us over at Fightful MMA on Twitter. It's the best way to do it. Now, obviously, Joe, we got to talk about the Amanda Nunes thing. That was supposed to be our main event.
Yeah, I don't know.
What are your thoughts on it? Because I know that you got back kind of late and saw the fallout.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a family day with the wife, my son, and her parents. We went to this beautiful place in mid Toronto. I look at my phone. Amanda Nunes is out of the fight. I was just like, "Are you kidding me? Like, what's happening here? Like, what? What happened?" And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm texting a few people. I'm checking social media. I'm just, what's happening here? And all I got was the same information. She got sick yesterday. Went to the hospital today, or yesterday or today, and then Dana White. And then I'm finding out she's medically cleared to compete. And I'm like, okay, good. She's medically cleared. Everything is fine. She may have had, who knows what it was. She's fine. She's going to fight. And then I get that thing with Dana White saying, it ain't going to happen. She's out. She's not fighting. I'm like, what do you mean she's not fighting? She's medically cleared. I want to know what the heck happened here. Like, you better have a damn good reason something happened. Because either something bad must have happened, or you're not mentally strong enough to deal with being a champion and fighting a contender. I hope nothing like, there's no death in the family or anything like that. I mean, how many people have we seen recently that have had deaths in the family the week of fight week or the morning of, and they still compete? Like, what happened here? Like, I don't know what it is, but it's strange.
I can't assess how she's feeling. I can't do that. I mean, it's hard for me to put it down and say, well, she felt too bad, but she should or shouldn't have fought. I don't know how she felt. I do know one thing. If she felt ill throughout this week, that's the type of thing you have to tell the UFC. Because if you tell the UFC, they can have a Jessica Ai, they can have a Leslie Smith, they can have a Lauren Murphy, they can have a Joanna Jędrzejczyk willing to fight, as psychotic as she is. Now, really, there's not a lot more that we can say. Amanda Nunes isn't a wuss. She's not scared of fighting anybody, especially someone she beat. Now, we got to talk about the Lauren Murphy, the Leslie Smith, the Jessica Ai, who didn't offer to take the fight. We heard nothing from her. But the Joanna Jędrzejczyks. Were these offers real? Was it posturing? Because either way, I mean, it doesn't make Joanna look any damn worse.
When it comes to Joanna, I'm 100% convinced that's a legit put me in there
offer.
Yeah, put me in there. I'll do it because she's a gangster. Like, she is just an absolute, I don't like using the word savage because it's so played out nowadays. She's a freaking savage. Like, I know you're the 150-pound, 115 champ. You're willing to go in there and fight someone 2 weight classes above you, even though you're technically potentially walking around at that weight. Yeah.
And the thing is, I think that she figured we're going to fight each other at 125 eventually anyway. Let's just do it and not cut the weight.
Gangster.
But here's one thing that I just pointed out. Kimbo and Dada were medically cleared too.
Touche. Touche.
And one of them died in the ring.
Yeah.
There are two people competed in that fight. One of the men are now dead. Rest in peace, Kimbo. And it wasn't the person who died in the ring. But both of them may have technically at some point died because of that fight. Isn't that psychotic? You just never know. Now, was Amanda Nunes in the physical condition of either one of those two? No. But we don't know how sick she is. She might have gotten hit once in the body and just Justine Keished herself. Like, for all that we know. Like, it could have happened. Shit happens.
That's terrible.
But
that's so bad.
Yeah, I don't. And then Bob Bennett says, well, they couldn't have done that. It was too late to do that.
Well, hold on. Who's to say that Shevchenko didn't say, I ain't fighting her. That's too risky.
Well, Shevchenko said that she wanted to. Shevchenko tried to get it done. Not only that, Shevchenko tried to say, let's do it at 125. And I was like, that's not the way this works.
No.
You can't do that. You can't cut 10 pounds the day of. You can't. And she said, make it for a belt. And I'm like, okay. So, like, you're just throwing weird stuff around now.
Yeah.
But
I'll fight her, but blah, 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 which means I'm not going to fight her. Right?
Yeah. But, I mean, she seemed all for it. She did seem all for it. Apparently, they're going to try to rebook that fight.
For Edmonton, yeah. So
in Edmonton,
very far away from me. So all you people hit me up. All you Canadians hit me up on social media if I'm going to be at that event. Probably not.
Here's a funny one. You know, my wife and I are coming to Toronto in a couple weeks. She said, "How close is Vancouver to Toronto?" like people think that Canada is like one big mini mall.
I'll tell you a quick story.
Not like Europe, which actually is.
Yeah, it's Europe's completely. You could take a flight from one country to 3 countries over for $45 in Europe. You can't do that in Canada. You want to fly from Toronto to Vancouver, you're looking at $700, $600. I remember one time UFC had an event in Minnesota. I think it was the Brock Lesnar Heath Herring fight. If I recall correctly. And we're out there, we're doing our network partying, hooking up with everybody, blah, blah, blah. We get to a bar and just sitting there and we're talking. And these 3 girls roll up to us. I thought to myself, okay, this is going to be fun, right? Let's see if Joe still has his game. No, I'm kidding. I didn't do that. Having a conversation, girl comes right out to me. She's like, where are you from? I said, I'm from just north of Toronto, right? She's like, Canada? I'm like, yeah, Canada. She's like, do you know Dave? I said, do I know Dave? Yeah, Dave from Canada. He was here about a month ago. And I said, I look at my boys. I'm like, you got to get her away from me. This is not the brightest star in the sky. That's what I get sometimes when I travel. Do you know Dave from Canada? Anyways, back to the
to put a bow on our 2 title fights. Speaking of just grouping in entire countries, I want Yoel Romero and Alexis Villa to start a tag team.
I saw that.
2 old Olympic Cuban dudes just chilling and wrestling and talking about gay Jesus.
It's terrible. I'll tell you one thing about those 2 guys, though. Every time, because especially when Alexis fights, Yoel is in his corner. Those are like, I don't know how to word this. Like, do you ever see the show Happy Days from the 70s?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, well, that's one of my favorite shows growing up. I'm 43,
Damn.
so but yeah, it was one of my favorite shows. So the Fonzarelli, he was the cool guy, right? Yoel and Alexis, when they're in the room, whether it's at the weigh-ins or whatever we're doing, they're like the 2 coolest guys in the room. They dress the best. They've got this aura about them. So when I saw you put that tweet out there that they should be a tag team, I'm like, what kind of name would you give them? Because they're like the coolest guys ever. Like, they're the best guys you'll ever see in public. They're just like, whether it's women, they're both like, I know you all are married, beautiful wife. Alexis, I don't know, but women flock to them. The dudes are always shaking their hands and like, these guys are the Cuban Fonzarellis. I love them.
Well, you got the speed and the little guy and Villa, and you got the big bruiser and Romero. It's a classic tag team. Speaking of, before we move on, does Samoa Joe have a chance against Brock Lesnar tomorrow at WWE Great Balls of Fire?
Jeez, are you asking me that question?
Yeah, it's so crazy for me to ask you a question about a fat Samoan facing Brock Lesnar like that wasn't the first thing we ever talked about on a podcast a year ago, right?
Jesus.
The more things change, the more they stay the same, Joe.
Yeah. Am I wrong if I say no? The Lesnar's
it's a pretty hot feud. It's really awesome. It's really, really good. Let's move on. What'd you think of Overeem and Werdum? You seem to hate the decision. I didn't hate it so much.
Stupid.
I thought it was a fitting turdy ending to a turdy trilogy.
If you give true, if you give
that was the finish we deserved. It really was.
If you give Overeem round 1, okay? You give him round 1. And you give him round 2. Werdum in round 3 made it a 10-8 round. To draw.
Yeah, but that under the new scoring, yeah.
Even
but here's
the thing. Even under the old scoring, even under the old unified rules of MMA before they got changed, that is still a 10-8 round.
Really?
It's still a 10-8 round. Yeah. That's what people are forgetting. That is still a 10-8 round. The fight is a draw no matter what. At the bare minimum, that fight's a draw. But in my opinion, Werdum won that first round. So he gets
that was a close one.
He gets this fight.
Close one.
Even in the post-fight interview, Alistair backtracked on his words. Well, that first round was terrible. Werdum won that round, but I'm better than Werdum. I won that round. I'm like, dude, you just backtracked. You just gave it away. Because if you say that your opponent won the first round and you got smashed in the third round, we do the math. You lose the fight. Mm-hmm. So that decision was gifted from the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Here you go, Overeem, for no reason. A guy they've suspended before.
Pretty terrible performance from both guys, in my opinion. And, you know, I'll just say it, and I don't know if it's age or this, but Werdum has never looked the same since USADA came to town.
Touché.
He never has. In the 2 years since USADA's been around, he's never looked the same. Now, granted, he's hit, 40 now? That could be it. I don't want to sit there and accuse him of being on some stuff. I'm not doing that. But the man is about to hit. He hits 40 this month.
Yeah, the same thing with Johnny Hendricks. Ever since USADA came around, things have changed.
Yep.
Werdum, in my opinion, okay, I know it's no one's going to believe me. No one's going to agree with this. No one's going to whatever. This is a guy that fought as if he had put money on himself to win a decision. Because he had Overeem pretty much on the fritz. He was going out. You just keep punching or kneeing him, he's going to be unconscious or the referee is going to stop the fight. And to prevent that, he takes him down to the ground. Like, what the hell was that? Like, where is your fight IQ? You have a guy, you're about to finish a guy. No, take him down to the ground. Put him down here. We'll stay here for another 2.5 minutes.
Happens all the time. We see it all the time in MMA, unfortunately.
Yeah, we have. I mean, that's just, a friend of mine was tweeting about people's, fighters' fight IQ and how Werdum arguably is one of the worst. I'm like, that was terrible. Travis Browne's another example. I don't know what the heck he was thinking today, but
he looked real promising early. We'll go ahead and talk about that fight. Travis Browne, first off, he's going to get a 6-figure offer from Bellator.
I saw that coming.
He will get a 6-figure offer because last year he finished the guy that just beat Fedor. He's getting that offer. But it's the curse of Edmund. And the shame is, the sad thing is, well, first off, Josh Barnett can't save anybody, whether it's Shayna, whether it's Marina, whether it's Jessamine. He can't save any of them. Edmund fucks him up so bad that you can't save any of them. And we're talking like Jessamine, who at one point was one of the most promising, not 135, 145-pound prospects in the game as an amateur. One of the most promising. Shayna Baszler, a pioneer. Travis Browne, who had some of the best, at one point, some of the best footwork among heavyweights that I'd ever seen. They go to Edmund. And, it's funny because you can see the Rousey influence in a lot of them when they land judo throws, which apparently Travis Browne can't stop judo shit that shouldn't work in MMA, judging by tonight's fight. But in some of their cases, you see the Rousey influence, but then you start to see the striking and how none of them strike at range. They all strike in the pocket. They all throw their fist by their waist. Like, it's like he coaches power over technique. And you can't always do that. As a heavyweight, you're going to have the power. In the 135-pound women's division, power is not that much of a factor. It was in some of Rousey's fights. But now you're looking at a Travis Browne who has lost 5 of 6. He's lost 4 in a row. And it ain't looking any better. Now, I thought that his footwork initially looked pretty good. The teeps and stuff, pretty good. That's an improvement over what we had seen before. It looked like he was pacing himself, but then the same thing that always happens to him happened. He got cracked, and he was never the same after that.
Don't reply as to why my 6.5-year-old son was up watching this pay-per-view with me, or watching the prelims so late, because he did watch the Travis Browne fight with me. And the first thing he said to me, he said, "Daddy, why does your friend have something black on his ankle?" I looked and I said, maybe his ankle, he just wants to keep it stabilized. He has an ankle brace on there. He's like, "How come he doesn't wear 2, one on the other side as well?" I looked at him. I said, "Shit, maybe he's nursing an injury." And then I looked, and
But why wouldn't you?
Okay. And then I'm paying attention to Travis's footwork. Like, he's looking okay. And my son says to me, "Your friend walks funny." And I'm looking, I'm like, he doesn't look that good. It looks like his knees are about to just go the other way. Like in the one fight, I forgot which fight he had, the Antonio Silva fight. He went into that fight as a heavy favorite. He was on that huge roll, and then boom, his knee goes out. And I said, this guy's knees and ankles, his legs are toast. And as I'm watching this fight, I see some of your tweets. I see some of the other tweets. He's looking pretty good. And around the 2 minute 10-second mark, even before he got cracked, that output that he was on drastically reduced. And I'm like, this, what's happened to him? It's almost like he's turned into a 2-minute fighter in a 15-minute sport. I joke about Dennis Seaver being a 10-minute fighter in a 15-minute sport. BJ Penn being a 5-minute fighter in a 10-minute sport or a 15-minute sport. Travis Browne's cardio was like, how do you not have cardio? I know you're a heavyweight, but how do you not have cardio for 15 minutes? How do you not know to not swing for the fences no matter what? Because if you don't knock this guy out, you've got a full 15 minutes in this fight. How do you know that when you're hurting a guy standing up and a guy on the ground that's an absolute, what's his nickname, the boa constrictor? Like, you don't
a 40-year-old man who has won like 14 of 15 fights.
You don't go to the ground with this guy.
He taps people out with scarf holds. Scarf holds. And Ezekiel's. Why would you go to the ground with him? The only loss he has was like kind of a close one last year. And that was a majority decision. Other than that, he's been on this streak where he's beaten guys like Monson and Mirko Krokop outside of the UFC. Then he steps into the UFC and has finished 4 of 5 guys. Now meanwhile, he's won 4 or 5. He's the number 15 guy in the world. Travis Browne, Andrei Arlovsky's still above him. I won't bitch about the rankings, but use our Fightful.com rankings, you guys. David Tease does a great job on those. Don't use UFC's. Great for Alexei Oleinik. I'm ready to get him in the top 10, get him a fight. I'd say get him a fight in the top 10. This was a fight in the top 10. This was. So I'm ready to get him somebody else. Give him Derek Lewis, if Derek Lewis wants to fight somebody.
Amanda Nunes just tweeted something out or Instagram something out. It's nothing major. Sorry to all my true fans. The fight will be rescheduled, and I'll be back at 100%. So she hasn't really said anything.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
What else we got on the show? Anthony Pettis looked outstanding. He's going to have hand surgery, though.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me one bit. You know what? I don't know. I'm kind of impressed with Anthony. I'm not really impressed with Anthony because, even leading up to this fight, I asked you the question because I didn't mean to be disrespectful to either gentleman. But I asked you, should Jim Miller and Anthony Pettis still be in the UFC? Because considering what that division looks like, and you said, yeah, you were adamant. Yes. You watch this fight here and you realize these guys are amazing. Like, they put on a great performance, but Anthony's reaction time to me is still slowed down because in the beginning of that fight, the first 3 strikes that Jim Miller landed were pretty bad. The low leg kick, then the left hand, the way Rafael Dos Anjos did against Anthony Pettis, where he busted up his orbital bone, and then he landed another inside left leg kick, and then he continued it. I'm like, Anthony's reaction time isn't looking good here, but eventually he was able to turn it around and do a fantastic job picking apart Jim Miller, ending up winning that decision. So I'll give Anthony Pettis kudos for that victory, for that for that performance, because I guess I kind of gave up on him, especially when he went down to 145. But in his post-fight interview, he made it clear: if you're a fighter, fight in your weight class. Don't be stupid. You and I both said him fighting at 145 was always stupid.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, his reaction time, he didn't have to react to a lot after that because he stayed on the outside and he picked Jim Miller apart. He used great takedown defense. His footwork looked much better, which I think that had more to do with his takedown defense than any particular hole he had in his takedown defense. A lot of it was footwork. He would cross his feet up a lot, and he would get caught. So I think it was a very good performance by him. Jim Miller was coming off of he had lost to Poirier by majority decision, but before that he won 3 in a row. And a Jim Miller fight, you just never know who's going to win. He's in that group of 155ers where if you did a round robin tournament, they would all end up with even 1-loss records. That's just how it is. Like, you look at that division, and I already wrote a feature on it. It's up on Fightful.com, you guys. Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz seem to fight when they want, and it looks like Khabib and Al Iaquinta are in that boat. Dos Anjos and Cerrone left. But you got new blood in Gaethje and Kevin Lee. You got Ferguson, Barboza, Eddie Alvarez as proven commodities. And having a Showtime Pettis in there looking like he did tonight, that to just toss in there, also it gives them a lot more flexibility. Like, what if somebody falls out a week and a half before? Anthony Showtime Pettis ain't that far off one at 155. They can throw him in there. That's very good. And this was a situation earlier this week we were discussing, was Sergio the better brother? That's thrown into question a little bit more. I don't see Anthony Pettis on a decline anymore. And when you look at his competition over the past few years, you kind of give the guy a little leeway. We've seen what Max Holloway can do, Eddie Alvarez, Rafael Dos Anjos, Edson Barboza. And the thing is, he catches them at the worst possible times in their career that he could ever catch those guys.
What'd you think of the pop that Holloway got from the crowd?
I thought it was great. Promising is what that was. Promising
for sure. And Joanna getting mad cheers. I loved it.
Yeah, she should. Here's a question that I asked. Is Joanna the greatest women's MMA fighter of all time?
Is Joanna the greatest women's MMA fighter of all time? Too early to say.
But I mean, compared to what else there is.
She's got the lead right now. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, as of right now,
if Holly Holm would have won that title, right?
Yeah, that would have been close. But I mean, she did. Joanna, nobody's ever beat Joanna. She's defended her title 5 times. If she does it a 6th time, she ties Rousey's record too. Because 5 used to be kind of like the benchmark. Like, they run this stuff. They run this.
Guys in the chat there, Ole Samole, I see your comment there about John Jones. I'll get to that in a little bit. It's got me laughing. You're right, dude.
My comment's about to make you laugh.
He says, put John Jones 24/7 watch. He should never leave the hotel room. I agree. I agree. We want to keep that UFC 214. Brandon Hughes is praying to the MMA gods, and nothing happens to that UFC 214 card. Lots of CM Punk versus anybody card or stuff there. Yeah. What the hell are you writing, Sean? I'm not repeating that.
There's not a lot else to talk about on this UFC 213 card. Great finishes by Trevin Giles, Santos, Chad Laprise.
Rob Font.
Chad Laprise, Rob Font. Chad Laprise looking good again. That's very good. Jordan Meehan, those cage miles caught up to him. But other than that, I mean, yeah, but I just want to say, situations like what happened today with Amanda Nunes is why the UFC loads up cards now. Why they put 2 to 3 title fights. They have to. And in turn, that's why we get shows, pardon my language, that are headlined by fucking Santiago Ponzinibbio.
Yeah.
And Gunnar Nelson. Both outstanding fighters, neither of which should be headlining a show anywhere. Even if it's at Gunnar Nelson's house, backyard next to his pool, somebody else should be headlining that show.
Yeah, okay, pardon the segue. I'll wait till this freaking Contender Series, Dana White's Contender Series, comes out on Tuesday, but there's a good chance I may rip it the next time I'm on the air, because by the sounds of it, I don't like doing this kind of stuff, Sean, but
by the sounds of it, it should be what The Ultimate Fighter. They should just cancel The Ultimate Fighter. What's the point of it now? Okay,
so there's my first comment. Okay, that's probably what's going to happen. That's protecting your brand and saying, no more Ultimate Fighter, but we have this now. So let's build this as the last season of The Ultimate Fighter gets pulled. We've got this now built up for the past 6 months.
I was told it's really cheap for them to produce, too.
It's their own product. That is correct. Okay.
In their own gym.
That is correct, which they own. The Nevada State Athletic Commission, that is your fees. Okay? On your own network. Start doing the math, ladies and gentlemen. I was this close to messaging one of my producers that still works at Sportsnet and saying, do you remember, can you find the tape? When I told Dana White, have you ever thought about doing The Ultimate Fighter like The Contender, the very first season of The Contender, where they actually showed these fighters as human beings with stories and blah, 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 blah. And the guy, and he ripped me apart. He ripped me apart, Sean, basically saying that it was the stupidest show ever, and that's why it failed. I said, you should honestly think about it, because it's worth it. When you tell stories of people's backgrounds, people will resonate with them. You know this already, Dana. Change it up. Just a thought. Stupid idea, Joe. Blah, blah, blah. All right. Then I had this thing with, I won't name the president of Canada at the time. You already know, guys, who that is. It was a Canada series. It was a UFC Canada series. I'm not going to give away the blueprint, but it was basically tournament format across the country, which will eventually get you to the Kings of Canada. They would get to the UFC. Long story short, blah, blah. It was laughed at. It was a Contender Series. That's why when you laughed at me the very first time this Dana White Contender Series came out, I rolled my eyes. I said, yeah, I bet it is coming out. I bet it is coming out. So anyways, kudos. The other thing I don't like, okay, kudos to Dana for doing it. Forget it. That's just my little rant there. Kudos for doing it. The only other problem I have with this is that I almost feel like it's taking away from the regional promotions. A lot of the regional promotions, because they're there to develop those fighters to get to the UFC. Now, I almost feel like there's a small little block there. Before you get to the UFC, you got to fight on Dana White's Contender Series, because there's so many events happening every Tuesday. Then you get to the UFC.
Joe, my friend, I'm going to let you in on a little secret.
Give it.
UFC follows the path of one thing: the WWE. On Wednesday nights at 8 p.m., WWE has NXT on their network.
Yes.
With wrestlers from their performance center that is very cheap to produce, makes talent for them. It serves as an alternate brand to the WWE. The people who can pretend that they don't like the WWE and say, I'm going to watch NXT. I'm so cool and hip. UFC wants to be their own regional promotion. You know, it happens.
It happens.
But let's talk about TUF finale last night. Justin Gaethje. Man. Now, I was told that people in the UFC were super pissy at Michael Johnson throughout the week, because I don't know if you saw like the inbred jokes he made at Justin Gaethje.
I didn't see them. No, I saw some of the stuff. Well, what the heck, man?
Johnson was walking alongside Gaethje in a hallway about a week ago and said, who did your mom have to screw to make you? Was it your brother, or was it her brother, or her dad, what did they, and he just kept on. It wasn't funny the first time he said it, but he said it over and over again. And I was told the UFC, like brass, were not happy about that. They weren't happy about the footage. They started to pull the footage from YouTube whenever they could. But yeah, and I do have to say though, Michael Johnson is he's like the step above Jim Miller. Mm-hmm. He's the type of guy you never know on any night who he'll win or lose to, but he can do it at a little bit of a higher level. He has top 10 level talent, but he fights really tough guys all the time, and he almost always gives them a fight. He even gave Khabib a little bit of trouble until Khabib was holding him down, saying, "Give up, I have to fight for the title." But man, Justin Gaethje has more heart than probably anybody I've ever seen compete in MMA.
It's just and Dan Henderson and Shogun. Justin Gaethje's performance. I mean, anyone that's watched Justin fight, he's a bit of a loose cannon. He takes shots he doesn't need to take. That's the stuff that's going to catch up to you later on in your career. Unfortunately, knock on wood, hopefully he's fine. But my goodness, did he put on the performance of a lifetime to come into the UFC and do what he did was just magical. He was out twice in that fight. Like, game over twice in the fight. And he emerges victorious. Like, that was a performance for the ages. I still think Shogun Dan Henderson in the UFC, the first time they fought, greatest fight of all time, was 5 rounds just of mayhem. This, to me, is close to, in my personal opinion. The other fight that I put up there is Gilbert Melendez, Diego Sanchez, and this fight here, Justin Gaethje, Michael Johnson. The only reason why I'll put the other fights above Johnson and Gaethje is because those ones went full 15 minutes or 25 minutes. This one here was a disaster for 2 rounds and full 2 rounds of just craziness, mayhem. Loved it.
Unbelievable fight. Great fight. I want to see them do it again at some point. Now you got Gaethje just there in the conversation. Tony Ferguson talking about fighting him. To me, you got to do first of all, you got to do Poirier Alvarez again. You got to do Khabib Tony Ferguson. You got to do it. But here's the thing. I put Gaethje on the card fighting somebody, anybody, and if one of those 2 guys can't make it, you put Gaethje in there. Now, if Gaethje runs into Khabib, something bad's going to happen because Khabib can't take a Gaethje shot, and Gaethje can't take Khabib's wrestling. He can't do it. So, but we have a real guy, a real new star right here. At 28 years old, 18-0, the only World Series of Fighting lightweight champion ever. That was just an incredible fight. I love the way he throws leg kicks in at times you don't think that you could or would. And the thing is, they don't look like super powerful, but they're really effective because he doesn't telegraph them at all. And because he doesn't telegraph them at all, his opponent doesn't prepare themselves for them at all. So, man, over the hill about that. I was pretty excited.
It's real quick for you for that one there. Edson Barbosa doesn't have an opponent, does he?
I don't think so.
There is your fight card, Sean.
It's a hell of one. Man, I want to see that all lightweight show.
Barbosa and Gaethje. Woo, buddy.
How about Jesse Taylor? Hey, that's quite a story.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse Taylor, when I first had a chance, the very first time I met him and interviewed him was when I did the Battlegrounds show with legendary Jim Ross and Chael P. Sonnen. And we were interviewing all the guys in the tournament, and Jesse came in, and I remember when I looked at him, I'm like, oh my God, have you ever aged? Holy smokes, your face looks like you've been in wars. And I'm looking down at the sheets, the notes that I have, I'm like, oh, no wonder, look how many fights you've had. So he's in this 8-man tournament. But by the end of the interview, I thought to myself, what a nice guy. Like, the mistake he made when he was on the originals, the original season when he should have been in the Ultimate Fighter, you forgive people for that. They're stupid. They get drunk. They make mistakes. I looked at him. I thought to myself, I'm not really judging him, but man, with no judgment, this guy just impressed me. Just a nice guy, super nice guy, and he showed it here and just persevered. Man, who would have thunk? I mean, if we ever told you Did you piss off Frank Trigg? Because he's texting me right now.
No.
Who would have thought Jesse Taylor? I mean, if I told you Jesse Taylor one day is going to be back in the UFC, he's going to win a season of The Ultimate Fighter, you'd have told me to go F myself. But here he is.
Yeah.
Jesse Taylor takes out Diego Lima by rear naked choke. That result isn't overly...
Well, let's be fair, though. Junie was considered. Junie Browning was in the running.
He was.
This guy, I mean, this is a guy who... Here's a fun fact, Joe. In addition to his disclosed 31-15 record, a fun and pretty impressive stat: 7-0 in Ultimate Fighter exhibition fights. How about that one? 7-0. Those are 7 fights you won't see. Did he deserve to get cut from the UFC the first time? Yeah, because he screwed up. He kicked a window out of a limo. They said, all right, well, you're going to fight CB Dalloway when we bring you back. Okay.
Hey, Triggs on the live chat. Be careful. He's complimenting me, ripping you, and we're hopefully gonna get. I got to check out Frank's schedule for Tuesday because we're not sure what we're doing for the Tuesday podcast. But Frank would have been great tonight to talk about that Werdum fight and the Herb Dean, the Werdum Overeem fight and the Herb Dean going a little long on that finish there. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I never thought Jesse Taylor would be back in the UFC. Period. Not because I didn't think that he could make it, but because of the fact that at some point he was just like, you know what, I'm going to fight anybody. Hector Lombard, Talis Leites, Luke Rockhold, David Branch, Mamed Khalidov. Good God, man. And even guys he beat like Kendall Grove, like he didn't care. And he talked about how he would go on 5 to 6 fight winning streaks. And then he would face these killers and he would lose. Good for him, man, because I heard rumors, and I can't substantiate it. I haven't asked him, but that he was sleeping on a beach at one point. Jesus, man. But yeah, he fights like at least 3 or 4 times a year, every year. And he got a big payday out of it. At $290,000, it'll probably end up being more like $170 after taxes, fees, and all that. But good for him.
That's probably 6 fights, though.
Yes, exactly.
It's not as much as people think. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, ask Elias Theodorou. Contract. Yeah.
Well, you can't. He'll get sued if you ask him too much.
Exactly. Yeah. Trig, what are you doing, Trig? Where are you? Oh, Trig.
Don't worry about him. Who'd he ever beat? We got Sean Ross Sapp on the show.
Trig's my boy.
What about Close and Gaethje, whose name I butchered last week, by the way? That's a fight I would like to see again just because of the emotion involved in it and because of what happened to Gaethje so early in that fight. But that was a good one.
It was a great fight, except I have zero respect for Close for what he said. I don't know if it's me. I don't know. I mean, I hate putting up this wall that it's not even the Donald Trump wall. It's the you're biased against Canadians. You love Canadians, right? So I don't mean
allegedly. I'm still confused about that.
Where I come from, I was born and raised. You never ever take shots at a country. You never take shots at a group of people. You never, it doesn't matter what color, what creed, you take a look at the content of their character. You take a look at the person individually. And that's, if you want to go after someone, that's who you speak about. You don't talk about where they're from, whether it's their town, they're here, in our case, a city, province, country, or outside of it. You never go after a nation. And when I see people do that, it drives me nuts. I think it's classless. I think what Tricard did, saying, oh, what did he say, all Englishmen are bums or something like that? Like, that's classless. Yeah. Bisping, ripping apart the Cuban flag, that to me is classless. I don't like seeing that kind of stuff. So whatever, when the fight is done, it's done. Be humble. Okay, I know Mark was saying some crazy stuff to him at the weigh-ins. I'm going to knock you out, blah, blah, blah. Even when they were sitting at the fighter meeting, I'm going to knock you out. Watch it, I'm going to knock you out. That's what fighters say and do.
Frank Trigg said, don't make this a Commonwealth thing, Joe. Hey, I live in Kentucky, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, by the way. Yeah, I thought his attitude overall after the fight, I'm like, man, I know he's kind of young in his career. He's like he was 9 fights in, but he's a 29-year-old man. And he's acting like that to a guy like 5 years his junior, Angie Casey.
Yeah.
Now I get it. It was an emotional situation, but I would love to see that one run back again. Jared Cannonier looked good. Oh my God, his opponent. Jesus.
He took an ass whooping.
That poor
Kept
guy.
going, man. Nick Rourke is just a bad dude. Holy smokes.
Yeah. So shout outs to Cannonier. I'd like to see him in the light heavyweight top 15 again. He's won 3 out of 4. He only dropped a fight to Teixeira in that stretch, and he went the distance with Teixeira. So something to be said about that. Angela Hill looked good. She needed to win that after dropping her UFC return. James Krause won, which I feel like he kind of needed. I don't know if he really needed to, because that loss to Jesse Taylor doesn't look too bad now that Taylor won the whole thing. CB Dalloway won, but I think they'll keep Ed Herman around because he doesn't fight a whole lot, and it feels like they're still like paying Ed Herman back for that Strikeforce fight that he took like 4 years ago. Like, hey, I know that this is kind of a bind. You're a UFC fighter, but nobody wants to fight on this Strikeforce card. Can you? Yeah, it's against Jacare, and he's like, shit. So I feel like they're still kind of paying him back. So he's getting his $50K to lose. He'll stick around. Gray Maynard controlled Ishihara, so they get to keep him around on Fight Pass shows for the next few years. Tisha Torres got her first finish ever. Surprise. That's promising.
Yeah.
That's promising. But let's talk about Elias. You thought he lost. I thought he won.
I believe he lost because he got so focused on the takedown in that 3rd round that he forgot that all he had to do was sort of disengage and keep going. Because I think he was doing really good in the stand-up. I think he was just too focused on that takedown that the smallest of reversals, which is basically what Brad did, changed the fight completely in that round, cost him the fight, in my opinion. I gave that 3rd round to Brad Tavares, which gave him the fight.
I had it 29-28 Elias. I didn't think that Tavares did anything with those early takedowns, and I'm not going to pretend like it was a super eventful fight. Elias's fighting style bites him in the ass.
I thought he looked much better yesterday. I thought he looked better than the previous fight. Yeah.
But I think it bites him in the ass on occasion because what these judges see may affect that. Or that may affect what these judges see, rather. Sorry about that. It was a very close fight. I mean, I'm nothing terrible. It's not like robbery, anything like that. But I thought Elias edged it out. I can't seem to find my damn notes on the fight, so I can't offer any more insight. But yeah, a solid weekend of fights. A solid weekend of fights.
Not as exhausting as last year when we started these podcasts, where we had 3 shows back to back.
Is it time to get rid of International Fight Week?
I think so. Unless the financial books say otherwise, if they're making crazy ass money on International Fight Week, capitalizing on the tourists, yeah, keep it. If they're making money, they're going to keep it. But other than that,
Joe, you could make like a full show, a really good show based on the fights that were supposed to happen. Shevchenko, Nunes, Garbrandt, Dillashaw, Cerrone, Lawler. The Rob Font fight was, I think this fight was supposed to happen somewhere else or something like that. I can't remember.
It was supposed to happen.
Yeah, it's supposed to happen forever ago. But Juban was supposed to fight on this show. Then yesterday, Aspen Ladd and Jessica I got pulled. Bossy was supposed to face Cannonier. They had to replace him. Before we even get into last year, that mess. And what about the year before that with Aldo and McGregor? It's time to let it go. It's time to let it go. I'm okay with the Hall of Fame and all that stuff so that way you can give shine to people like Frank Trigg, I guess.
Hey, man, Trigg deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Trig was
Yes, he
one of the
does.
original bad boys, man. Him and Tito Ortiz, and those were the guys that knew it way ahead of time.
Yeah.
Long before Chael Sonnen, long before Conor McGregor, they figured it out. But talk shit, get some big fights.
Do you think that Frank Trigg and Kurt Angle hang out, pretend to be each other, and like wear each other's Hall of Fame stuff since they're both in Hall of Fames?
I'm gonna go with what is no Alex for 500.
You know, they pulled some of that trickery in TNA wrestling like a decade ago, right?
What?
Him and Kurt Angle.
Really?
Yeah, they did a deal on TNA wrestling.
Did I miss the boat on
Frank worked a match in TNA.
Frank, did you? That shows you much wrestling.
Why would I lie about that?
No, I
act like I don't know my shit.
You definitely know your shit. I'm just kind of like, I didn't know it. I'm just kind of like, whoa, really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Frank worked a match against AJ Styles, who is like a top WWE star right now. It was at No Surrender in 2008. TNA No Surrender.
Frank said, I got a great trophy from it, but can't get tickets to the fights.
Yeah.
Trigger's the best. What else, man? What else we got going on?
Fightful.com. Obviously, we've got coverage of everything under the sun. We got Great Balls of Fire on Sunday. Fightfulpods.com. I'm doing all kinds of writing over there. Go over and use our forums, guys. I want us to like become the top forum online for combat sports, entertainment, anything. Go over there, start a topic. I'm going to be doing giveaways, all that fun stuff. Just share the website. Austin Aries asked for his WWE release. We're going to talk about that tomorrow on the Great Balls of Fire post show. Man, that's a dumbass name. AJ Styles won the United States title in a live event. Dixie Carter is going to be on a WWE production. This was supposed to be a quiet weekend. Alberto Del Rio is trying to fight the Usos and New Day and Triple H and all this stuff. And people are trying to tell me that the Usos can beat a guy that's had 15 pro MMA fights and is president of Combates America and was supposed to go to the fucking Olympics as a wrestler, and you all are high off your asses if you believe that. So these are the people I deal with, Joe. I love our readers. I love our viewers, but I had a guy, honest to God, telling me that the Usos, one of them could beat up Alberto Del Rio, and they're like, well, Alberto Del Rio was knocked out. And I'm like, well, something tells me that Jimmy Uso with 0 pro fights ain't exactly prime Mirko Cro Cop.
No. Negative. Well, okay.
Frank Trigg says this was a great storyline Vince Russo wrote for me in TNA. I need to get Trigg on a recording. We need to have that filmed for the List and Your Boy, because Vince is also on our podcast network. That would be very interesting. I'm gonna orchestrate something there.
Do it. Trigg's got more stories than you can possibly imagine. He's just classic. Before we let everybody go, to enjoy the rest of their evenings or mornings in our case, Tuesday's edition of the Holy Smokes podcast will be an interesting one because we have no idea what time we're going to start. Because there's a certain... It
starts at 3. Rather, we got the schedule for the Mayweather-McGregor thing. It looks like we should be starting on time. It looks like it. But sorry to cut you off. But just to let you know, it looks like we're going to be starting on time. But go ahead.
Well, isn't the schedule that I got, unless it's an updated schedule, they start after us.
Okay, well, here's the thing. It says the 2:30 is the live show, but 3 is the fighters and media only availability.
This is for the Staples one.
Yeah, and it looks like we're going to have guys at Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday's pressers.
Okay.
Are you going Wednesday?
If they come back to me with a yes, I will likely go. I'm waiting to find out for that. For those that don't know, I do have personal commitments every Wednesday night, but this is kind of a big fight.
Special.
It's a special fight. I'm going to see if I can figure something out. But sorry, guys, from my understanding, and the reason why we're bringing this up is, a lot of you folks that are tuned in right now, chances are will be tuned in on Tuesday and will expect us to come on at 3 o'clock. But from my understanding, we probably want to go on. We want this press conference to go off, and then for us to come on afterwards and discuss the zaniness that is probably McGregor Mayweather. So,
needless to say, we ain't going to be competing with Mayweather-McGregor's first presser. That's not us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can count me out on that one. But I'm talking to a guy about going on behalf of Fightful Tuesday, hopefully Joe Wednesday, Carlos Toro on Thursday. Unfortunately, I wanted to get somebody there for Friday, but Joe Hulbert has prior obligations. Konstantin Eckner will be out of the country. So that's a bummer. We could have had somebody for all 4 days. But hey, if you're in London and you want to go on behalf of Fightful, get at your boy. Get at your boy. Also, no way in hell Alistair Overeem deserves a title shot. That's it.
Yeah. So you are right. 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, which is 5:30 p.m. our time, is when that kicks off. So it looks like the Holy Smokes podcast, we can go live. Or sorry, we can go at 3. Or we can go afterwards. But yeah, either way, follow our social media, ladies and gentlemen. Sean Ross Sapp, at Sean Ross Sapp, Joe Ferraro, at Showdown Joe, the lovely and talented at Frank Trigg, if you like, because he may join us on Tuesday, depending on what part of the world he's in. If he's not surfing, fishing, stunt driving, stunting, jumping off, getting punched in the face, he's pissed off that he didn't get a Damon Wayans role, I think. Because Damon Wayans is like 6'9" in boots. So Frank's pissed. No, he's not. But yeah, we'll figure something out, guys. Sean, anything else you want to go before we close this off?
That's it. Like I said, guys, use our forums. Let people know about the site. We are 1 year old this week. I'm incredibly happy with the site. Love it. But want to see it grow. That way Jimmy Van can get his money back.
That's it. And Frank Vegas. Frank Trigg will be in Vegas, so we'll have some good times with Frank, likely on Tuesday. But to everyone else that tuned in, we thank you. We appreciate it. For those that are on afterwards, and check us out on iTunes and on Stitcher, thank you very much. As always, we do ask all you peeps in the live chat, thank you very much for joining us. You guys are the best. Make sure you tell a friend. I know Sean says to tell 10. Tell a friend. Tell people about us. We bring some different analysis here. Obviously, with my experience, my credentials, Sean has exceptional credentials as well. Very educated. Guys like Frank Trigg, Sean Pearson, Elias Theodorou, Mark Hominick, for us, a hobby joining us. The list is going to get bigger, by the way. So, yeah, we're going to have some fun. But for now, we do thank everybody. Make sure you follow us at Fightful Online and at Fightful MMA, FightfulPods.com. We're having a great time. We're trying to get this to grow. And Jimmy Van, get some money for this guy. Loves it. So all you guys out there and ladies, thank you very much. Until Tuesday, make sure you follow our social media in terms of the MMA content. We'll let you know what time we go live for the Holy Smokes podcast. Till then, we say ciao for now.